Hey there, happy day. Thanks for tuning in. So I'm here in Northern California with these magnificent redwood trees, these ancient giants. And I'm really grateful to be around them because every time I'm around the trees, I'm reminded of something that a friend mentioned to me of how, in his understanding, trees are some of the greatest spiritual teachers that exist on our planet at this time. For trees are rooted down into the earth, right? They're rooted down into the darkness, into the depth. They're unafraid of the underworld. They have a relationship with the darkness in order to reach up, to orient to the light of the sun, right? And I think about this a lot. And trees, what do? They just breathe. They're strong and steady in who and what they are. And they breathe in and breathe out. We depend on trees. We depend on the forest to be alive, for our breath of life. And I think it's so important to really come to these places, to really study nature, right? To form a relationship with nature, because everything that we seek to know in our life can be told by nature. By studying the nature not only outside of us, by divine nature, by that spark of creation, by the original intelligence that exists, but also our internal nature, our unique nature. And I'm really struck by the trees in particular because I think a huge part of that study of nature, particularly internally and externally, is building relationship with the darkness, building relationship with what a lot of people call the shadow. What is the shadow? For me, so much of the shadow is the parts of ourselves that we're afraid of. It's those different voices that arise within us that tell us that we're not good enough, that have anger and grief and sadness, that are those swirling myriad of thoughts and emotions and belief systems that arise and maybe have us act from those places that aren't for our highest good. They're not in our highest expression. But it's important to recognize that all of those parts have a purpose. That all of those voices within you, discern first and foremost that all of the voices that live within you are not you. That there are voices that are parts of you that are not a full expression of who and what you are, that are not a full expression of your truth, and they have a purpose. They have a reason for existing. Those parts within you formed from trauma. They formed from experiences that you had through childhood and through adolescence, and they're protective parts, right? They help you to survive, to get through to this point. In fact, there's a very good chance that if you didn't have those voices, you wouldn't be alive right now. But there comes a point in our life where we become conscious of those voices, where we decide that we no longer want those voices to be the ones in control. And so often they're the ones in control, particularly around our family, particularly within intimate relationship. So there comes a point when we decide, wow, that's no longer serving me. I would like to transition, because we have the potential to consciously transition, to train our mind and to really work with our inner world to build relationship with it, right? To build relationship with the darkness, to build relationship with the depth. And the more that you study nature outside of you, you will see that death and darkness and decay is necessary. It's a part of the cycle of life. But so often in our culture, we're taught to fear it. We're taught to run from it, to act like it doesn't exist, to ignore the fact that our death is pending. We have an expiration date that is approaching, and we have no idea when that is going to happen, as I was really reminded by an experience yesterday. So the importance of really in this time asking yourself, how fully do you want to live? How fully do you want your life to be an expression of your truth, an expression of the prayers that you have for this time, for yourself, for humanity, for the world? How fully do you want to feel, to be in your integrity, to live in your truth? To be oriented from the light at the center of your heart, to bring the gifts of your soul in service, in purpose in this time. Because the more that we decide that we want to answer the call of life, that we want to come to life, that we want to live on purpose, then the more that journey, that gaze begins to turn inward, and we have to build relationship with the full spectrum of our being. I think a lot of times in the modern New Age spiritual paradigm, there's this whole idea of release. And this is something that I talked a lot about with a dear friend of mine lately after a workshop that I had offered around this. This concept of release, and the way that I'm defining release is this idea that we will go and sit with the shaman, or go and sit with the medicine, or have that meditation practice, or we'll have that spontaneous awakening, and we will release an emotion, a thought form, a belief system, a dark pattern of ourselves. And with that idea of release, that it'll be gone out of our system, that we won't have to look at it or deal with it any longer. And there's a different concept of release that she brought up, which is the importance of allowing energy to move with our system, right? So often these voices, these patterns, these belief systems, they're locked in to our being. We're holding it imprisoned somewhere within us. So the release could be that freedom from that prison, to be able to circulate through the system, to be able to move, because emotion is energy in motion, right? So the importance of allowing those things to move, but to recognize that a lot of times this paradigm of release comes with this idea that it's out of our system, that it's gone, that we no longer have to deal with it, right? And I think ultimately that's a really harmful idea, because it is imperative to allow these energies to move, but this idea of release, where we're constantly trying to, oh, that part of me, that thought form, that judgmental idea or pattern or belief, I'm just going to let it go. I'm going to get it out of my system. That way I don't have to deal with it anymore. And as soon as we think that, as soon as that is our aim, then we're telling that part of ourself that it doesn't have a place within our system, that it doesn't belong here. And then ultimately, if it doesn't have a place within us, then we're telling it that that piece of humanity does not have a place to exist within our reality. We're pushing away the shadow. We're trying to, what is that word? We're rid of it. We're trying to push it out. We're trying to excommunicate it from our reality. And rather, instead of trying to force it away, instead of trying to keep it imprisoned, instead of trying to run from it and pretend like it doesn't exist, build relationship with it. And the number one question that I've been receiving around this lately is like, how do I build relationship with these voices? So first and foremost is that awareness. Not all of the voices that live within you are you. They are parts of you. They are aspects of you. But begin to discern. You can feel, right? You can feel when a voice is rising within you that isn't for your best good. You can feel when those voices of doubt and self-judgment and blame and criticism and anger arise. You can feel within the center of your heart that they don't necessarily feel good. They don't necessarily feel true. So begin to discern which voices are arising within you that don't feel aligned with your highest good, that don't feel aligned with your original intention. And then begin to go deeper into that. As soon as you recognize that that voice is arising within you, you can pause and ask yourself, instead of reacting from that place, which is what we so often do, especially in relationship, you can pause and you can ask yourself, wow, where does this voice live within me? Somatically, where do I feel this voice? Because I guarantee that that voice has a hiding spot, a jail, a prison inside of you somewhere, so we can connect somatically to where does that voice live within. And then we can begin to dialogue with those voices, and I guarantee they will talk back. And as soon as you begin to do this, you begin to realize that there is a part of you that is able to have a dialogue with that other part of you. You begin to connect with that voice. You begin to connect with the truer and truer aspects of your nature, of your reality. You begin to dialogue with these other voices of asking, wow, first offer gratitude, right? Always begin with gratitude every day with your voices, with all the full spectrum of your humanity. Thank you so much. This voice of judgment of self-deprecation, of blame, of shame. Thank you so much. You have been so diligent in your work. I see that you have been so steady in helping to keep me safe, of helping to keep my heart and my vulnerability protected, and that has been so necessary in order to survive. And thank you for the work that you have done. I so appreciate you. And you're no longer the one who's going to be in control. I want to build relationship with you. What is your purpose within my system? What are you protecting within me? And how can I make you feel safe in the current reality? Because where you're living from, that old memory, that old experience that you had, is no longer current with where we are now. So I thank you for your service, and I want to bring you current, up to date with what we're actually experiencing in the here and now, in the present day. So through that, we begin to build relationship with the shadow, right? We begin to build relationship with the underworld. We begin to root into our own reality. We begin to spread our roots through the core of our being with full understanding and bringing greater consciousness, awareness to the full spectrum of everything that we are, all of the parts of self. Because if we don't have relationship with our shadow, what is in your shadow is what runs your life, right? So building relationship with the darkness, building relationship with the shadow, because the more that we're able to do that in a conscious and full way with awareness, then the more we are able to consciously orient ourselves to the light, right? So I think that this is such a core and foundational piece, because so often we're in what one of my teachers, Vanessa Stone, calls the marketplace of humanity, where we're bartering our words and our actions, where we're depending on the horizontal axis, where we're looking to others for our confirmation of who we are, for love and acceptance and security and friendship and validation of self. We're giving and taking, we're bartering. Okay, I'm going to give you love if you're going to give me love. And I'm going to say that because I think that you're thinking this, and I want to manipulate what you're thinking to think this about me. And we're in this weird place where we're bartering back and forth, we're giving and trading. And the importance of vertical orientation, like the trees. To recognize that you are in one relationship the whole of your life. It is with that force that you are born from and of, that animating life force of all of creation that is so present the moment that we step into nature. We can feel it, right? There's a whole different quality, a whole different energetic that exists, and you come from that force that allows an oak tree to blossom from an acorn, that allows a caterpillar to go in to the pupa and to emerge as a magnificent butterfly. Like that force of creation, of mountains and rivers and deserts and forests and streams and oceans. That force of creation is what you come from. And that same force that brings you to life, that you incarnate into form from, is the same force that is going to ultimately kill you and everything that you know and love. So for me, vertical orientation is the remembrance of the one relationship that we are in the whole of our life, because that is the only thing that we are truly in relationship with. We come into this world with nothing, and we will leave with nothing. And that force is what the expression of our soul gifts. When I talk about live on purpose, when I talk about bring your gifts and your service to humanity, that force is incarnated uniquely through you, that genius that lives within you, that brilliance that only you can offer the world. That is your expression of that force. And that force has an indwelling place, right? The one, the way, lives at the very center of your heart. So the more that we are able to vertically orient, rather than being in the horizontal marketplace of humanity, where we're bartering our words and our actions in order to try to give and receive, to take and to give, into this weird interaction of dependence upon other humans for our validation, we can recognize that we are in one relationship. We can begin to ask ourselves, what is true for me at the very center of my being? And how do I allow myself to live from that place? How do I allow my every step, my every word, my every action to become an expression of the prayer that I have for this time, to allow myself to truly come to life by studying, by building relationship with the full spectrum of who and what I am, and asking myself, how am I showing up in orientation to the force of life in this moment, allowing my full self to come through? Because that is one of the greatest gifts that you can give to this world at this time. The world needs people who have come alive. The world needs people that are living on purpose, with a recognition of what they are oriented to, of what they are in service to, of what they answer to. And that is not to society's beliefs. That is not to the cultural expectations of who and what you should become. And that is not even to your parents' expectations for what you should become. That is to the very truth that lives within you, the responsibility that you have to study your nature and to listen to the wisdom that lives within, to have relationship with the voices that feel out of alignment, so that you can consciously orient your awareness to that which is true, to the light, to a tall spine, to living in service, to showing up fully embodied in the full spectrum of your humanity, and the great gift of everything that is you. There is no part of you that does not belong. There is no part of you that is not valid. Study nature, both externally, divine nature, and internally, your personal nature. It all comes from the one relationship. It all comes from the one force. Build relationship with it. Have a really beautiful rest of your day. And I encourage you, as you move through your life, as you move into your relationships, as you feel those different aspects of yourself arise, those different voices that are not a full expression of yourself, instead of reacting from that place, remember the trees. Root down into the earth. Take a deep breath. Breathe in whatever is happening around you and ask yourself, okay, where am I oriented at from in my being? How can I exhale my truth? How can I really have awareness of where this voice is coming from instead of reacting from that place, instead of speaking, allowing that voice to come up and out unconsciously from the shadow? Ask yourself, wow, where is this voice coming from? And is this actually true? And how do I orient to my truth in this moment? To be rooted into the earth, building relationship with the shadow, oriented to the light of the sun, and breathe. Stay tuned. Let me know what you think. And thanks for tuning in. There's some really great things that are coming up. I have a immersion that's happening at a hot springs coming up in November. It's Sierra Hot Springs. We're doing Unveiling the Heart. So going deeper into the practical aspects of how do we really do this in a good way? What are the tools that you can have in your toolkit to really begin to study the self, to build relationship with? I've got the School of Connection, an 8-month program for women coming up starting in October. And I'm also doing a womb clearing facilitator training with Grandmother Karina and Maria Stark. And that's coming up in BC in October as well. So tune in about all of those things. I'm also doing lots of one-on-one work right now, soul level counsel, archetypal astrology readings. So there's lots of ways to deepen this work. This is what I am devoted to in humanity and in my life right now. So please reach out if there's any way that I can support you or that you'd like to go deeper. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon.